We could start the real podcast now if you guys are ready.
I'm as ready as we'll ever be.
Cool.
Sure.
I love Pat's enthusiasm.
To be fair, it's a Marvel comic, so I can imagine how this is gonna go.
I
I
have some
was.
questions for you too.
Oh, I know. I was talking to Kat before we started recording, actually, and I was like, I think Tyler probably liked it. I don't know if Pat will. We'll see. Let's get into it, boys.
Let's
Yeah, we'll
do
Welcome.
it.
talk about that when it's official.
I did some research on these characters for sure.
Yeah, which makes sense because you definitely do. Do we need to do an intro? Can you just find an intro in there? This is waiting on the trade. It's a comics book club. It's for people who can't keep up with monthly comics. I'm Matt Ledger.
I'm Patrick Fitzgerald Fleck.
And I'm Tyler, and this whole thing has gone off the rails already.
We're trying about as hard as the criminals in The Superior Foes of Spider-Man, which is the book we read this month. We read the first volume of The Superior Foes of Spider-Man by Nick Spencer, Steve Lieber, a host of other talented folks. In case you need a refresher, Superior Foes of Spider-Man is a crime comedy starring some of the webhead's best C-list villains. Pat's gonna argue with that word best, I think, later, but we'll see.
I'm gonna argue with the C-list part.
Oh, that's definitely. I mean, who's not? Okay, we're already diverging. It's fine. We don't have discussion questions anymore for this reason, so we can go on tangents whenever we want. Take that, listeners.
I tried to harness us, but no, broke free.
The only non-C-lister in this group, arguably, is Shocker. That's it.
Shocker's the only one I knew.
Yeah, because the '90s cartoon, right?
Video games for me, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense too. Okay.
Mostly the 90s cartoon for myself.
All right. I'm gonna finish the intro now.
Okay.
Narrated from the perspective of Fred Boomerang Myers, definite C-lister. This volume follows Boomerang and the quote-unquote Sinister Six's attempt to pull off a spectacular heist. Oh my god, what a word. Without killing each other along the way. Tyler, welcome back to the podcast. As you can tell, this is an informal one. This one, we're just shooting from the hip. I think
Oh,
you'll
yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I am happy to be back, and I am happy that we are discussing tier lists of people and characters. Because if I remember correctly, you guys not too long ago did a tier list episode, and I was low. I was low on that list, and that's okay.
You were not
Because
low. You were about medium, I think. Hang on. Let me
I think
pull
it
up.
averaged out.
Yeah, let me
it
pull up
might
the
average
image.
out.
Because, like, again, you have Fraction Hawkeye in
Yeah.
your corner, which, like,
I peaked at episode 1.
Yeah.
My first episode. That was it. It's been downhill ever since.
I mean, spoilers for the rest of this discussion. Like, this has similar vibes, but is not as good as Fraction
Right.
Hawkeye. Like,
Right.
it definitely is of a similar feel, while not being quite the same thing, and I would argue not quite as good. Yeah, I know, Pat. Pat's highlighting the bit in
I'm
the
trying
intro
to
outro
cross it
document
out
where
now.
he's
You've used up my
crossing it out. You can recommend
Yeah.
it, Pat. I would recommend it to someone who read this. If you were like, hey, you read this and you liked it, I'd totally recommend Fraction Aha Hawkeye. And that's the end of the podcast, you guys. We did
I told you it was off the rails.
recommendations, and we're
I
done.
told you it was off the rails.
It's back
No,
and forth
to-
this time.
To build on that, I had that exact feeling though as I was reading it. Was so behind the scenes, right? Spoilers also about how we come up with these silly episodes. Is I'm so bad at picking books, and ever since Rogue and Gambit, they don't let me pick books anymore.
That's not true. That's not true. I just you go
we had
ahead, and then
discussed
I'll
this
jump in with how I decided that this is the book we should read. When do we get there?
Yeah, so I had thrown out some ideas, some Ant-Man comics that I've actually recommended in the past and read, and then Matt, you found one, and Pat, you found the ones that I had read, and but like extended version, and then we were like, well, what about this Superior Foes one? Which, to be fair, has always been on my radar because I remember reading like snippets of it being like, this is really good, and then seeing some stuff on Reddit
It
where
pops
people
up
are
on
like,
Reddit all the damn time. Like
all the
it's
time.
there like every month someone posts a page from Superior Foes of Spider-Man. Usually it's
really?
the
Mm.
page where Mach 7 is trying to get out the window and can't.
Yes,
It's
which is
usually that page.
great, right? And so like I was like, man, one of these days I'm gonna sit down and read that. So when you brought it up, I was like, you know what? Yeah, let's do that, right? Because I've read the Ant-Man ones before. It would just be revisiting, and not that that's a bad thing. But I was like, yeah, I've kind of wanted to read this for a while, and that's cool. Pat'll hate it, but it's fine. And
It wasn't I didn't even think Pat would hate it. We'll see if Pat hates it. We're
Don't
gonna let
don't
Pat
hate
talk in a
we'll
it.
get
second.
there. We'll get there.
But
Um,
first, we're gonna roll over a little bit more. So, like, for
yeah,
me, the reason this came to mind when you
I've been on this
suggested the
podcast
Ant-Man
before. I
series.
know how it goes.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
don't get to talk. That's how
That's
the
right.
waiting
right.
on the train with Matt, Pat, Tyler, but Pat doesn't get to chat.
I'm just here.
yeah,
Yeah.
Um, so one of the Ant-Man series was written by Nick Spencer. And whenever I see Nick Spencer's name attached to a Marvel comic, I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't read Superior Foes of Spider-Man yet. For like the same reason you were talking about, Tyler, where like it just pops up on Reddit all the time. Like
all the time.
of the 3 comics podcasts I listen to semi-regularly, like 2 of them have people that are really into Superior Foes of Spider-Man and really like it, and just like I haven't gotten around to it. And I was like, you know what? It's about like working class C-list criminals just trying to like make a buck and get by. Tyler will dig this book. Like I
Yep.
know Tyler will like this book. I don't know if Pat will like this book, but I know Tyler will like it. First, I want to see if I'm right about Tyler having liked it. Tyler, did you like the book?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And it was because it was so much like Hawkeye. So I love that Hawkeye series. It is one of the reasons I got back into comics in general, right? It was the Thor, Jason Aaron run and that Hawkeye run. Totally got me back into comics after being out of the game for such a long time.
So, like, chronologically, this comes out a bit after that Hawkeye series. I think the Hawkeye series is about 6 or 7 issues into its run at this point. I looked this up
Yeah.
earlier today. And I think part of the reason this book even gets greenlit is likely the fact that that Hawkeye book is doing well and critically acclaimed at the time. And Marvel's like, oh, we can take a swing on stuff like that because people like that.
Right. But it was like almost the exact opposite from the Hawkeye series, right? So like when you're reading Hawkeye, he's kind of like, woe is me, down on my luck. I can't believe I have to do this. Like, oh my gosh, I'm an Avenger, but all I want to do is run my apartment complex, right?
Mhm.
This Boomerang Man, so high on himself, so confident. I wish I had an inkling of the confidence that this character has in real life. Like anything to be like, man, I just wish I could think the way this guy does. Because
I
as
mean,
you
you
like,
have to be pretty deluded to wear a boomerang on your face all the time, though, right? Like, you've got to
right,
have pretty high self-esteem.
you, yeah, you got to be on cloud 9 like all the time, right? Cloud 10 even. Um, but it's the exact opposite. Like if you were to read both of them at like ongoing, you could definitely see like the similarities and then go, wow, these are polar opposites. But they both work. Like it totally works.
Yeah, I think there's, like, a lot of similarities in style between, like, some of Steve Lieber's stuff and some of David Aja's stuff. Like, I'm thinking specifically of the, like, two-page spread of, the Owl's Hideout, like, where it's, like, traps, traps,
Yeah.
traps, the elevator, like, here's the, like, Silvermane's head at the end, like, that diagram thing, like, that is very much Aja-ish, if that makes
hmm
sense.
Well, and like the early on when he's like flicking off the prisoner and it has like the comics code on it, or like when like the seal of approval or whatever.
Yeah, and, like, the symbol dialogue balloons, right? Like, I really like the one where Shocker goes into the like, it looks like finds I guess it's Chameleon as Hammerhead on the toilet, and his dialogue balloon is just a caution sign.
Yeah, yeah. Like silly stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, it totally works. And it works better in this because you can tell pretty quickly that this is going to be a comedy series, right? Like, but the reason I was arguing about C list stuff, other than Shocker, I'd say I didn't know who any of these people were. I honestly didn't. I was like,
Thank God.
Did you know
these
who any of these
these
people
are
were?
these are Z
Shocker.
list, Z with as in zebra list hero villains. Long story short, and I'm sure we'll talk about more. Otherwise, this would be a very boring episode. Yeah, I enjoyed it. This was a great recommendation uh, for me, for my taste. So I
Say,
thought it was good.
got it for one. Pat, how'd you feel about the book?
It was okay. It was all right.
You know, I will take that because
Pat has
I don't
just
know how many times Pat said on here, I just don't think I like comic books, and I think that's hilarious to me. But
I
we
mean,
finally
this every
there
month,
were
even though
flavors of that. Don't worry.
yeah. Pat has dropped in the chat a question asking whether Chameleon, Hammerhead, and Tombstone are different characters. The answer is yes.
I mean,
Although sometimes no,
if you
because as you know,
squint,
Chameleon has been Hammerhead in this book.
how many mobsters
It's all
turned
mobsters,
super
baby. It's
villains? I
mobsters all the way
mean,
down.
oh my god.
That's what the book is.
I
It's
had like
working class criminals and mobsters.
a crisis of like comics existential crisis of like, is it me? No, it was the children who are wrong.
It's Overdrive who's out of touch.
yeah.
Boomerang, literally he's an ex-pitcher.
Yeah,
That's what he is. And
yeah.
he throws exploding boomerangs? What are we doing?
They don't
What
all
is
explode.
happening?
They don't all explode,
Where is
Pat.
it getting them? Where is it getting them?
Oh my god, Pat. Wow,
Let's-
you're way outside the suspension of disbelief necessary for the Marvel universe to exist right now.
Why
I'm
give him a
guessing-
realist? Why give him a realistic background and then not explain where he gets his exploding boomerangs from?
Pat, I'm just gonna go out on a limb here.
Oh
and
my
say
God.
You probably didn't watch WrestleMania for the same reason,
No.
right? Like I'm just gonna assume that
Pat,
was
for the rest of the podcast to work, you're gonna have to
Well-
yes and the exploding boomerangs here a little
Okay, that's
bit,
fine.
I
That's fine.
think.
Put that to the side. Put it to the
Sure.
side. Take it. Put it over there carefully because they explode. But
Some of
I
them,
just
some of them don't.
he does the best part is nobody really uses their powers at all in this
No,
except for the
overdrive does, but yeah.
but
every once in a while,
otherwise-
Shocker is because there are sound effects, but it's not really noticeable. Like his gauntlets are on, but he's not doing the normal Shocker thing of
So-
like blasted people. with sound.
Boomerang, just an ex-pitcher, professional pitcher, who,
Yeah.
why on? Okay, sure. That's the only thing he is. That's all he is. Why? Okay, he has no superpowers. He just throws things well.
Yeah, you're talking about Green Arrow right now. So
I
one of the most
know.
popular comic book characters of all time.
or the
But-
fact
And,
that
like,
we're
it-
But
talking
Green
about
Arrow,
each
does
season-
like training and shit, right? Like he's gone through like extensive. He's
What
not
you
just
said-
a professional athlete turned villain. There's nothing. Okay, anyways, all right.
I don't think you're paying enough respect.
No.
to
I'm
all
going
the
through all. I'm
professional
going through
athletes trained,
all
Pat.
Sinister Six. No. So
It'll be easy 'cause
Boomerang
there's only
throws
5
things
of them. So
well. Yeah, I know,
you're
right?
good.
Shocker. I sort of get he like is. They say he's a genius engineer who built his Shocker gauntlets, whatever they're called.
I like
Yeah.
that. I know that you've been on
Sure.
Wikipedia for this
I
because
have.
nowhere
I
in this
have.
book do they mention that Shocker is
No,
their
he's not
genius
treated very
engineer.
well.
He's so funny though. He's probably my favorite.
He's the only one that has like a soul of any kind.
Yeah.
yeah, which is completely different from like the portrays of him in the
Of
cartoon,
anything else, yeah.
or anything else. So like in this one, him being like the one guy with a conscience. You're like,
What is
okay, okay.
Stay in school, kid.
And then
Do
Yeah,
drugs.
yeah.
Don't do drugs. Stay in school. Are
Do you
you
need help?
okay? yeah.
Yeah,
part
did you
was
just
good.
crawl out of that car? Don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs.
Stay in school. That was good. Overdrive has like magic nanites or
I'll
something.
be honest with you, Pat. I don't even remember what Overdrive Steel is.
I don't understand how that works at all, but whatever.
He can change cars, right? Like that. Like he
Yeah,
just,
but it's like
Make
it's a
anything drivable. That's what I seem to remember from like the Free Comic Book Day story where he was introduced, which I own. I think still. I should have reread it before we recorded because
he,
I
like he can
again like
control and transform technology that he's nearby.
I think he can make anything drivable. I think that's what he can do. Hey God,
It's very
now I'm
weird.
the one going to Wikipedia.
It's very
Keep
weird.
going through your Sinister Six though, Pat.
And then Speed Demon got given he's basically the Flash, but in Marvel, because he he worked in pharmaceuticals, just like the Flash, and like had a special serum that was given to him by a god of gaming or something from the Marvel universe. One of the elders. Holy God.
the
The
Grandmaster?
Grandmaster, yes.
The Grandmaster. I just guessed that. I'm so good at comic books.
Goddamn. No wonder you host a podcast about him. This is great. Well, and to be fair,
I
he's
did a
very
deep
much.
dive once I found that and was like, oh God, I'm going to stop. This is just too bad.
And isn't he just like a more crass Wally, anyways? Like,
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I love that reading Superior Foes of Spider-Man made you learn about the Grandmaster, Pat. Everything's
Oh,
worth it to
God.
me. The whole rest
It's
of the
like, what the
podcast
fuck
where
is
you don't like the
this?
book is worth it to me.
What is this? Well, you see, the Grandmaster is a member of the Elders?
Elders.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of them.
Which are the last members of their respective species, but they've been around since the beginning. The first race is created by the Celestials.
Can I tell you
Oh,
the
God.
Wikipedia summary of what Overdrive's powers are?
Please do.
So
I would like
we
to
all
know.
know going forward it's very
Yeah.
important that we're all on the same page.
Mhm.
He has the ability to convert any vehicle into a high-powered one. What is the definition of high-powered? I don't know. That's just what Wikipedia
Whatever the
says.
writer needs it to be for that month's
Well, it's like the helicopter that he makes in here.
Yeah,
like,
he makes the
That's
toy
crazy.
helicopter
They
into
have,
a
like,
helicopter.
bullets and missiles and stuff you can just
Yeah.
create from a fake. Good Lord.
Yeah.
Seems very Forge-esque, right? Like,
How does that
just
guy
create
not have infinite money? Just like
Yeah.
transform
be
a
a
basic
criminal?
car
Why?
into a toy car into a Porsche, sell
That
it,
dude
and
should
then
be working for the Pentagon.
right? Just like, how are
that
you
could
having
just
money
have his own-
problems?
That guy could just have his own like car dealership on the corner, where he's like
Just buys Matchbox cars and turns
And-
them into real cars.
Yeah.
What percentage profit is that? 15,000%? Like, what the hell?
It's
I
better
think you
than
need
what
to
Walmart's
stay
doing.
near it for it to stay as it is. But
Well,
at
I don't
that
know.
point,
That's
you've
not what
already
it says
driven
in the
away.
summary
right?
here, but it's possible,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, I did some,
You did more
sleuthing.
research than me, Pat, so I'm willing to believe you.
And then Beetle, I guess, has a really cool. I guess that's armor that she's wearing. Doesn't look like armor to me, but I guess it's really powerful armor.
Yeah.
That gives her powers,
Yeah,
abilities.
she's got,
and
like,
stuff.
energy blasts and stuff.
Yeah.
The power of spreadsheets and binders, also.
Yeah, power of organizational skills.
She put in the
Totally.
time.
Yeah, totally. Something that you could again. Why be a criminal? Look at how organized you are.
Right.
Well, and then you find out at the end why she is, because her dad
It's
is
a family business. Yeah.
is Tombstone. So no
It was
spoilers.
different than Chameleon,
spoilers.
but you'd have to squint to notice.
It's been out since.
Well, one of them has
2012,
hair and
so-
one of them doesn't, Pat. I feel like that one's pretty obvious.
They
Like,
look so similar to each
the fact that they both have pushed up noses, yeah, I'll give you that. White
And they're
faces,
white.
yes. But, like,
They're like-
one has hair, one doesn't. Also,
Okay.
the caption says, "Hey kids, it's Tombstone." Like, it
I know.
goes out of
I
its
was
way
like,
to tell you.
Oh, okay, cool. Tombstone. That's different than Hammerhead and different from. Ugh,
I mean,
just
it does
like
rely on you
comics were
knowing
a
who
mistake.
Tombstone is, and that matters. I will give you that.
How on earth did these things ever become popular? How?
I mean, they're not anymore, is the thing, Pat.
That's kind of the running. That's kind of the running joke, right?
Roughly 100,000 people in the world read these every month.
Yeah.
Maybe more, maybe less.
All right, and then I have a question about Superior Spider-Man.
Oh God!
How?
Here we go.
Just dodge that.
How?
That's a whole nother episode, man. That's a whole nother episode.
So it's Doc Ock's mind inside the body of Peter Parker, or is it a
Yeah.
cloned body of Peter
No,
Parker?
no,
It's literally.
it's the body. It's the real
Where's
body
the
of Peter
consciousness of Peter Parker?
Parker. Also in Peter Parker's body, though you don't.
Oh,
find
they're doing
out
that
till
kind of
later.
thing.
It's like I've erased him, but he's not really erased. He's still
Did-
kind of there.
Okay. Do they do the creepy thing where he's still in a relationship with Mary Jane?
Oh yeah.
Oh, God
yeah.
damn it, comic books. Why?
And not only that, because didn't Octavius try to
No.
like marry
Mary
Aunt
Aunt
May?
May, yeah.
Yeah,
He always like
yeah.
refers to her in his head as like that dear old lady. It's
Oh my
hilarious.
God.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's creepy, Pat. There's problems.
Why? Why? That's the first thing I thought. I was like, wait, he's in the body of. Wait a second.
I might be remembering wrong, but I I read a couple of the Superior Spider-Man comics, but doesn't like Peter like realize this when he comes back and like almost like pukes or something like that? He's like, oh wait, that means oh no, and is like just pictures Mary Jane, and it's like this is bad. He can see
that sounds like a Dan Slott scene to me. So yeah, that
was
sounds
either
like something that would happen.
Just dancing
Or-
around rape, just a little.
he got it was the other way. He got Otto's memories, right? Because they became the same person. So he saw Aunt May naked or whatever, or like he remembered that.
No.
Yeah, maybe it was
And it was
that
like
actually.
a whole different thing. I
Yeah.
think it's that now that I walked my way through it. But yeah, kind of a silly thing that comics do. And you're worried about how long Overdrive's cars stick around. There are much
I'm
more
not.
important things to worry
But-
about, Pat. Like Peter
It's a
Parker
spectrum.
seeing Aunt May
Aunt May naked. Oh no. Oh no.
off the rails the whole time.
So yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it for what it was, but yeah, I mean, yeah,
Right? Like you laughed?
there are humorous bits.
Okay. What was your favorite humorous bit, Pat?
Oh shit, what was it? There was one joke that really got me. Come back to me. I'm gonna find it.
I will say my favorite running gag is the Sinister Six bit. The fact that there's only 5 of them.
Yeah, and then 4, and then
And
like,
then 4,
and then 3
1,
potentially, and then 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that part is great, and the fact that they're like, they're gonna think that there's somebody and that could be anybody. When Luke Cage and Iron Fist show up, and that's the first thing they say.
There's probably a
There's
couple
only
more.
4.
There's a couple.
There's probably in
here
hiding.
somewhere.
It could be anybody.
Watch
And I
out.
was like, oh, that's hilarious. I also was like, that's why we're reading this comic. It has nothing to do with the superior foes, has nothing to do with the story, has nothing to do with it being anything like the Hawkeye. It's because the Heroes for Hire showed up, and we all know that Matt loves his
Luke
Heroes
Cage.
for Hire.
I didn't even know they were in this book, to be honest with you. So it was a very pleasant surprise, and I really love like the weird Iron Fist costumes that result from people being like, "Well, yeah, he's a billionaire, but he knows kung fu." Like he
Yeah.
just
So he's
shows
in a
up in his Iron Fist basket suit. Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, when they showed up, I was like, that's why we're reading it, but I didn't know you hadn't read it yet, so that's funny. But I was happy to see them too. That was good.
No, like I embrace the absurdities of the superhero comic. Like Overdrive makes toy helicopters into like giant real helicopters. Of course, he's just like a Z-list criminal. Why would he use that power well? Some
Right.
people just
Yeah.
don't have it, Pat.
You just throw up boomerangs real good, I guess.
Sometimes Iron Fist shows up to fight crime in a suit.
Right? So does Moon Knight, to be fair.
It just
so,
makes
like,
me so.
anyway.
It just upsets me that there's Captain Boomerang in DC. I mean, the fact that creators of comic books had the same
Decided that guy who throws boomerangs is worth
Australia
copying.
boomerangs. God damn it! God damn it!
I mean, at least Boomerang's current costume is much better than the one where he had like
Just
boomerangs on his
boomerangs
hips
stapled
or
to him,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah.
Even like so that was one of somehow Boomerang ended up in the first set of Hero Clicks. I don't understand how, but he did, and it was that costume, and even I was like, "This makes no sense. Why does this dude have boomerangs on his hips?"
How
Was
could
he really in the first Hero Clicks, Roy?
Yeah, and like on his
Oh.
chest. The chest ones are even worse, right? He's just got 2 giant boomerangs on his chest.
How could he ever be considered a competition for Spider-Man?
Well,
Spider-Man.
usually, like again, when you look at all these things, he's always on a team, right? And
It
usually
has
it's
to
like
be, right?
kind of a messy nonsense team like this.
Oh my god.
I'm looking up this Hero Clicks.
But anyways, I
See,
posted
I
my favorite.
Okay.
joke.
I laughed so hard at that picture.
The callback to Dormammu. Like they brought it up, the fact that you want Dormammu to be the 6th person. You're always bringing up Dormammu. It's like I was like, well, that's a weird inclusion. Okay, and then they come back to this picture of him imagining what the life with his girlfriend would be, and Dormammu's his best man. And then you look down at the bod, and she's having a
Dormammu's baby.
Dormammu baby.
Dormammu's baby. Heck
Yeah, so we're specifically talking about the page. It's in the last issue, right? Because that's when they
Holy
go to the baseball
shit.
game. Yeah, him and
Yeah,
the Philly bartender girl.
her hair.
And so, like, their page where they're, like, within, like, a frame of a heart, and there's a bunch of different hearts on the page showing what their future life could be like in Fred's head. It's Dormammu as his best man, and
Yeah.
Dormammu as the person his wife has cheated on him
And the
with.
fact that he's accepting the kid, like you can see in the picture, he's like, he's fine with it. It's like he's
Yeah,
not
like,
like
"Oh,
upset.
sweet, a Dormammu baby. I
Of
always wanted
course you
one
had
of
sex with
those."
Dormammu at the wedding. Come on.
Who
of
wouldn't?
course.
Maybe it was a
Right?
three-way. Who knows?
Oh man, that's so funny. That made me
I think
laugh.
I've seen that video. Anyways, that's stupid. That's a dumb joke. Yeah, I didn't have this hero click, but that looks like a Wave 1 hero click.
Oh,
Sorry, I
it
just pulled it
definitely
up.
is, yeah. It
That's a
was
Wave
like
1 hero click if I've ever seen it.
the the very first set of hero clicks, and I'll link to the sculpt in the show notes because it's
Yeah.
fun. It's like, if I remember right, it's like Boomerang, like, leaning forward, he's got his arm up to, like, throw a boom like, up and behind him
Yep.
like he's preparing to throw a boomerang,
You
and it's
have it
just it's
100%.
wild. These are the things that stick in my head. Like, I can't I can't memorize plants. I keep going back and forth with my wife about, like, what the plants in our yard for and,
Oh, not that
like,
one.
what our yard are, and,
Oh,
like,
not that
it
one.
never
Yeah.
sticks, but oh, did I pop out?
No, you're
No, you're
Oh,
good.
good.
no, that's Captain Boomerang the 2nd,
Oh, my
Tyler.
bad.
Completely different. Oh, it's
That
Pat did that?
that
That makes
that
sense.
Pat
That's
did
me.
that.
It's
Yeah,
like,
Is
no.
it this
Tyler knows
one?
better.
There it
Yeah,
is.
that's the one.
That's the one.
He's
Oh,
got the
that's
lean.
Anyways, I can't learn plant taxonomy, but I sure can remember what the Boomerang hero click looks like.
yeah, that's amazing. That
Oh,
is
what a brain I've
fantastic.
constructed. Um, anyways,
Stay in school, kids.
don't do
Don't do
drugs.
drugs.
Don't do
Shocker.
drugs.
So, like, talking about our favorite stuff, I think Shocker is my favorite in this comic, maybe just because he's given some of the best scenes. Like, I really love it's not even really a Shocker scene, I guess it's more of a Boomerang scene, but there's that montage after Shocker's like, "I saw you with the Punisher, and the Punisher was really chameleon, and what's going on, bro?" And Boomerang's like, "Oh, I was just, like, doing that so you all would, like, fall in line with me, and we're good." And then Boomerang does this
Yeah.
whole spiel about, like, "Oh, man, the gang's together, and, like, we're gonna be great." And then it ends with him shoving Shocker off a bridge in a
Yes.
truck.
In the trunk of a car.
Oh
Yeah.
my god, loved it. Loved the pacing's so good, like, I think that's part of why people talk about this book so much is, like, it's funny, yes, but in order for funny to work in comic books, you have to know how to sell the gag with pacing. Because, like, the one thing like, the artist is doing a lot of directing, right? They're controlling how you're moving through time and moving across the page, and so, like, for a joke to land, you not only have to write it well, you also have to direct it well, and there's not a lot of artists who can do that in, like, quote, unquote, "mainstream" comic books. Like, it's actually relatively rare because Marvel and DC also just don't like to greenlight a lot of books that are funny also. Like, they don't think nerds like funny, and I don't know why. Nerds love
Yeah.
funny, I think, but,
Yeah, they kind of
um
bank on the tried and true a little
yeah,
too
it's all
much.
people punching other people in the face and being serious about it. Like, every once in a while, I just watch Speed Demon steal a girl's dog and call her stupid. Oh,
Yeah.
I laughed
Inspector
out
is a
loud at
bad
this book
name.
so much, it's great.
Or yeah, or like just but you're right about the pacing on that because it wasn't just one page. It's like the total it's
It's
the
a few pages, yeah, and
yeah,
then you turn the page and, like, it's set up, like, so you can see into the
It's
inside of
in
the
the
trunk
trunk.
as the car's going off the bridge, like, in one splash page, like, with the it's really well done.
it is. And like that was kind of to the part where I'm like, this is so Hawkeye similar, but also like the same like the opposite, right? Like he's so confident in what he's about to do. Like he goes, puts his friend into the trunk of a car, drives to a bar to ask out a
Ask a girl
bartender
out.
who just gave read him the riot act like a couple pages earlier or whatever. Gets the date, drives around like, man, things sure are looking up.
Life's okay. Yeah.
Life's all right, and just pushes his friend off.
It's like, wait, what is he doing with this
Everything's
car?
great,
Wait,
I've
why did
got
he
my
push the
Yeah,
friend.
car off the? Oh my god.
yeah. So like, I'm totally in it. I'm like, what the hell's the car got to do with this? Like, as I'm reading it, I was like, this is all right. So I forget what issue that was. Was that okay? That was issue 4, and this is
It must
out
have
of
been
6.
4, yeah, because
Yeah.
the other shocker bit I wanted to talk about like talk about that is really well paced is Shocker getting out of the car at the junkyard. He's
Yeah.
talking to the kid. You're like slowly realizing like, wait, that little kid like kind of looks familiar, doesn't he? And then
Yep.
like you get to that panel where Silvermane's head on an RC car just kind of
How does
pops
that
out.
like? I
Yeah.
thought Boomerang made up that story.
So
Like all of a
he
sudden
thinks
it
he did,
is.
but he didn't. Which is
Right.
Uh,
And that
like, and so Shocker's
that's
like, "Oh my god, there it is!" and scoops him up like a football and
that's
runs
love.
away.
well, like that's the thing. You're right. The pacing is so good because as the events start to happen, you start to piece it together,
You can
going,
kind of figure out what's
"There's
going on as it's happening, and then
yeah,
you're like, "Oh wait, this is happening," and Shocker's like, "Oh wait, this is happening," and the next page is just like, "Whoop."
but then they go and completely like 180 it with the Doom painting, right? Like they're like, we're
Paint
gonna
Doom
break into
like one
this
of your
place.
French.
Yeah, that's my other favorite joke in the whole thing.
That was
Uh,
the line I was gonna challenge you to have not laughed at, Pat, so I'm glad you brought it up.
uh, I actually took a picture of it and sent it to somebody and was like, "This is the kind of comics I'm doing my homework on right now." By the way,
I want
Nice.
you to draw Doom
yeah.
like one of your French girls.
But like, okay, so the Shockers thing, right? Like he's pushing them in, and then the next issue, we're gonna go rob this place, right? And it's the same thing. Like you're watching the pacing, and you're like, of course this coward is in the elevator that he knew about the whole
The
time.
whole time,
Well,
yeah.
you know, and you're like, okay, he's actually gonna go and do this, and then it's like, J.K., I've robbed something completely different, and no one's gonna know about it. And you're like, okay, every other time there's been something that you kind of expect other than the shocker part in the trunk. But like it does such a good job of like leading you one way and then going, just kidding. We're gonna do it
Yeah,
this way now.
there
And
are a
then
lot
the
of nice
next
swerves.
yeah, like the swerves aren't unforgivable. They're not, oh my gosh, I can't believe we went this route or something stupid like that. Like it was like, okay, no, this makes sense. This actually adds to the complexity of what this guy is actually going through of like trying to basically screw everybody over
And,
except for
like, of
himself.
course he's an unreliable narrator, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's Boomerang, like, he's terrible, he's awful. His gang doesn't even wanna bail him out of prison at the start of this, like
yeah. So I liked a lot of that stuff, a lot of the pacing, and that's a good point. That's good stuff. I liked it.
and I like the Silvermane thing because it's a swerve it's, like, 3 swerves in the same gag. Because like, first he tells the story about, like, "Hey, this kid found Silvermane's head and put it on a car." But no, really, the owl has the head. But no, really, the owl has a painting. But no, really, the first story is actually
But
true,
no, really, the
which is
first was right.
Yeah,
bonkers.
yeah. The Doom bit was great though. Like the whole this is how it happened. Probably I don't know. I'm gonna tell the story about how it happened, and you're just like, and we just did this bit, so that kind of like running gag of here's my narration of how these things happen. You're like, that's good.
I don't
That's
know,
good.
man. I do really enjoy the thought of Doctor Doom waking up and being like, "What did I do last night, though?"
Yeah.
Doom did what?
Did what? Yeah. No. Yeah, it's good stuff. I thoroughly enjoyed that part.
I'm looking at my other like I had pulled out a bit from every issue where I was like, "This is my favorite sequence," or like, "This is my favorite line of dialogue." I did really love the line about Mach 7 where Boomerang's like, "Also, that new costume makes him look like something your wife says she doesn't own." I think there's a lot of good
Yeah.
Mach 7 gags. Like, he's very much played to be a rube throughout the entire thing in a way that works really well.
Well, just the one-liners. Like as you're reading it, like that's one of them. You get the man. I love the Prius. The in the fight when they're like, "Oh my God, we're all gonna die!" like, um, I think I just peed. Like there's all sorts of silly stuff and the sight gags, like when the Punisher shows up, or who we think is the Punisher shows
Yeah.
up, and what's the guy's name? The Speed guy, Speed Demon,
Speed Demon,
um,
yeah.
uh, disappears, comes back for the doggy bag, disappears again. Like, there's
That's the
just so
one
many
that I picked
things.
for that issue as far as, like, favorite sequence of the issue. Like, I did because that's issue 2. is like the Punisher shows up, Speed Demon like zips out, zips back in, grabs the doggy bag. The other one in that issue that's competing with it is the like 4-panel little cartoony sequence where Boomerang's imagining boomeranging his lawyer to death.
Yes,
Oh
yes,
yeah.
that's a good one. I like how they do that for a couple things too, like with Chameleon, like cutting off their heads because they didn't give him Silvermane's head. But like one other thing too that probably a lot of people probably like kind of ignored was the Thunderbolts badge, like that part where Luke Cage rips it off and
Yeah,
goes,
see,
"This
and
doesn't
that's one of
belong
the
to you
things I
anymore."
specifically noted in my notes is like Pat's not gonna understand this, and that's fine.
But I think that's probably one of the more like important parts too, and it's so small, like it's like just one little box at the bottom of the page.
I thought Luke Cage liked the little lightning bolt symbol. It's like, yeah, you take that, Luke. That's yours now.
At this point, Luke Cage is like the leader of the Thunderbolts, so he's miffed at them
Shocker was
for.
part of the Thunderbolts
I don't
for a time.
remember when Shocker was part of the Thunderbolts, honestly. I know when Boomerang was, like, even before having read this, and he does his little, like, flashback spiel, like, I was like, oh yeah, Boomerang was on the Thunderbolts. I don't know when Shocker was. It's not all in this brain, and that's fine.
Well, we just gotta run back to the hero clicks and see which ones might have the Thunderbolt. No, but I just think that because it kind of is also the right, it's full of swerves, right? That's kind of the swerve of showing that Shocker's the good guy of the group because he's still wearing it, and the Thunderbolts were supposed to be good guys, or they were fake good guys, but then they turned into real good guys. And now this one, he's part of this gang. He knows that Boomerang Man is doing him wrong, and they still like take that part. Like it's the one thing that's kind of holding them into that like good guys side. And yeah, I think it's some good symbolism that kind of shows the turn that I'm sure happens in the second installment of it, because it doesn't full on do it by the end of this one.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was comedic. I laughed at a few of the jokes, and you're right about the timing is pretty good for most of them. But I don't know if I'm like I don't really have a need to keep reading it. Like there's what 2 or 3 other volumes after this one,
I don't remember how long it goes, actually. I was gonna look that up before we started, but who does research for podcasts they host, right? I
right?
think yeah, I think it runs like
I think I saw
20,
volume 3.
20-ish issues. Let me look it up.
I'm gonna
17.
save
I
it.
was close. Yeah,
17
17.
issues?
So like
Yeah.
that's only probably 3 trades worth. I would read 2 more trades of this. I do kind of want to figure out how the rest of the initial heist at least goes. Like I don't know if I
Sure.
need to read volume 3 if volume 2 wraps up this initial like kind of larger story, but
I mean, these characters are funny, but I don't care enough about them to see where it goes. Like it just seems like
well, they're all kind of tedious, right? Which I think is supposed to
yeah,
be part of the bit. Like but yeah, I could see that being where someone lands on it of like, yeah, these people are all kind of tedious and I don't really care about them. I hope they get what's coming to them.
they're all exhausting. Yeah, it's just like what's that HBO series that everyone's all the rich people who are
Oh,
complete
Succession?
assholes?
I do like
Succession.
Succession though.
I can't watch that.
I understand. I think because we watched the first episode of that together
We
actually,
did.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And yeah,
It's
I
well
think that
written, and I can see that the character development would be pretty interesting, but I just like it's just sapped my soul.
every time I try to explain that show to my wife, Kat, like I can feel her being like, "Why do you watch this? That sounds like awful. It sounds like awful people being awful."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. That's true." So I
Could
get
you
it.
then tell her because it's not TV, it's HBO,
It's HBO.
and then
Max,
just walk
please.
away?
Yeah,
And
now
then
it's
just
just
walk away.
Max.
This is
Oh,
Max.
I don't know any. I don't know. I have no idea.
And the streaming service is like really subpar, but that's another different podcast.
Off the rails.
Oh, what rails? We're in a field now.
That's all right. If we had Overdrive, we could make a new train or something. I don't know.
That's
Fucking,
true.
There
I
you
have
go.
no idea.
How is he not a million? I mean, the same way Spider-Man's not a millionaire, right? Like web fluid, you could sell that, buddy.
Any of its inventions, really. Yeah.
Yeah, because comic book superhero universes always use logic, Pat, and that's okay.
Mhm.
Because we get to read
Logic
stories
when
like
they
this.
need to, not but where the stupid exploding boomerangs come from, though.
Where chameleon well, I mean, I'm
Draw the
you know,
line.
Pat, as much as you say you want a story about where the exploding boomerangs come from, you don't. Like, I've seen so many of that type of story where it's like, "Where did Jim Gordon get his trench coat?" And it's like, I don't I don't
Probably a
need to know
store.
that, actually, like, I don't really need to
I'm sure it was
know.
passed down from his prior boss that he saw shot outside of something or other.
I'm guessing it was just a men's warehouse.
I'm gonna look it up now.
There is a
Hey,
Spider-Man story from the J. Michael Straczynski run where there's like a tailor who does like both superhero and supervillain costumes, and so he's like off limits. So it's out there somewhere, Pat, I'm sure. I'm sure somewhere there's the story of who makes boomerangs, silly, silly boomerangs.
where did the owl find all these rats that want to eat people?
It's New York
I think
City. They're just
you
running
just
around,
starve
man.
rats
Is that what
long
it is?
enough.
Is that the running? Is that a thing? I don't know. The only rats I
When
know are ninjas, and they're old.
Nice. When Kat and I visited New York City, she was legitimately excited because we saw a rat crawl into a trash can, and she was like, "I've done it. I've had the New York experience."
Yeah,
Pizza rat. Pizza rat.
Yeah.
yeah. When
Is the rat hole in Chicago? I think it's a Chicago thing. Rat hole.
yeah, there's a lot of rats in Chicago. That's what I was gonna say when our mutual friend Bill used to live down there. I was staying at his place once, and he lived right downtown, you know. And I looked out the window, and there was a rat the size of a small dog running down the street, and I'm like, yeah, now that checks out. That's a thing.
Oh no, Pat, I'm already ahead of you. I'm looking at the Chicago rat hole right now.
Oh,
So,
good. People have made it into a shrine and put like coins and stuff into the rat
What
hole.
in the
Oh,
world?
I'm being told
fucking
it was
great.
removed,
I know.
like today. How timely.
Ugh,
That
R.I.P.
is oddly timely.
Oh yeah,
Because
3 hours ago. No, the man.
no,
Oh, god
who
damn it.
knew that this podcast about a bunch of weird Sinister Six wannabes
R.I.P.
would
rat
be
hole.
such a breaking news thing regarding a.
When it comes out 2 months from now or whenever it comes
Damn.
out.
I said breaking news. I said I know what I said. Um, yeah. Anyways, back to the comic book, I guess. I'm gonna go out there and say I thoroughly enjoyed it.
That was
And
fun.
I'll probably pick up the other ones. I don't see why I wouldn't, because, like you said, you kind of A, want to see if they get what's coming to them, or B, whether it like works out for them.
Yeah, they
And
somehow
now,
succeed, right? Or at least some
yeah,
of them somehow I just want Shocker to make it. That's all I want. I don't care
Poor
about the rest of
Shocker.
them. I just want Shocker to make it. My beautiful, beautiful boy clutching a robot, like a robot senior citizen mafioso head.
Guilty.
yeah. But yeah, that's kind of the thing too, right? Like all these stories just opened up right at the end of this one, and you're like, okay. And by all, I mean 3. But still, you kind of want to see what happens now.
And
And
it kind of makes sense that things feel sort of halfway because apparently it was planned to be like a 12-issue series and then done before it did well enough to go to 17. So
yeah,
makes sense that we're about halfway through at this point. But yeah, I mean, we're kind of at the point where we're like, hey, would you recommend this to someone? I'm like, yeah, I would recommend this to someone. It was a good book. It was
Sure.
fun.
Yeah.
oh, absolutely. I think I would.
I would think having read some older Spider-Man or Daredevil, something to give you a little taste of what you're getting into.
I will tell you
Would
that Overdrive is like I mean, recent is a relative term, I guess, but like a fairly recent
sure.
Spider-Man foe. Post marriage dissolving. So I guess that's like, oh god, that's actually a while ago now at this
I was
point.
gonna say,
Never mind. Never
dude,
mind. I
I'm
retract it.
I'm fairly certain you and me were in the basement of Kryptonite Collectibles, the yearly shout out to the greatest comic book shop.
Yeah.
Um, every time I'm on here, we were in the basement playing Hero Clicks. Speaking of, when that comic came out, and I think you guys like read it and were like, "This is dumb," and I was over there reading like Punisher kills the Marvel Universe or something wild
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
like
So
2007. I'm
yeah,
mad. I'm mad now that I said that that's recent. I wish I
yeah.
hadn't said that. I want to take it back.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I said at work the other day that I graduated in 2007, and someone was like, "Oh man, I was born in 2005," and I was like, "Well, okay, I'm gonna go crawl into the back compactor, press the button when I'm in there. Thanks." Like, just brutal. I guess that's what I get for being the boss. I don't know. Yeah, I think I'd recommend it totally,
Yeah.
but I think I would preface it saying like, don't go into it expecting like a super serious story. Like, obviously,
No, it is what it is, right? Like, so we've
yeah.
got the section in the discussion guide where I've got the like very super serious question of like, what themes or through lines do you see in the story? How does the book relate to your own life? And I just wrote, I think this one's just fun. I don't think it really needs to be like, we don't need to think about it that much. It's fun. It's funny. It's good.
Right, this isn't X-Men. This isn't like is this right? Is this wrong? Are we I mean, X-Men's really more of like a race and acceptance thing, but like there's none of that like deep underlying meaning or anything along it's like you said, we're going to go rob this restaurant because we need food, right? Like silly stuff like that. And
Whatever the most expensive thing you have is, please.
yes, I will take that. Um yeah, so I think if you preface it to people like if you just want to read comics to have fun. And this is like I just got done reading all catching up on the Ghost Rider stuff, right?
Mhm.
There's nothing fun about it, right? Like the Ghost Rider stuff was like heavy. It was like gory and violent and heavy, and there was like dealing with past regrets and deaths and all this stuff. This was like a nice, refreshing like palate cleanser to be like,
Dude,
okay, comics can be fun.
yeah, like I wish we'd get more funny comics. Like every once in a while one pops up. Like, and when I say funny comics, I mean funny superhero comics because like there's a bunch of funny comics out there. You don't have to send your letters or tweets or whatever. But like funny superhero comics specifically, like because there's so much, they're inherently absurd, right? Like in the way that Pat's asking me where does Boomerang get his boomerangs, like they're nonsense, and like play into it every once in a while. Just love it, because like there's a lot of other people out there that love it.
Yeah,
Where does he store them in the new costume? I don't understand.
They're all on his back, man. You can see them.
Are they? Oh fuck.
As opposed to on his chest, where he would like hit his chin on them all the time. I don't understand that initial costume at all. It's okay. It doesn't have to make sense. It's comic books, baby.
Oh yeah, they are. Huh.
I will say I appreciate the fact that they did not do a fake accent for Australia. Like they didn't like lean into that because he is Australian. They mention it a couple times, but they never like. I don't know if you guys remember that last comic I picked that had fake accents, but we
Yeah.
didn't like it.
I will say
Um,
that, so before we started recording, had dinner, and Kat took the book, and I was like, "Oh yeah, it's funny. You might like it." And she flipped to this bit where they were talking about Silvermane, and she was like, "Of course he's Sicilian." Kat, who's partly
right,
Italian.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
it's like, well, yeah.
I couldn't ask her dad for anything on your wedding. It was very upsetting.
Oh, that's rough, buddy.
I know. She specifically said we couldn't. It's like,
Yeah.
damn.
Thank you for abiding by that. Really
Yep.
appreciate it. Very happy about it. I guess on the note of I wish there were more funny comics, I guess we can do recommendations. So if someone like this, what would you recommend to them? Would either of you gentlemen like to go first?
Well, we've already done my comic
Yeah, sorry,
recommendation,
Pat.
anyways. Blown out of the water within the first 5 minutes of this
I'll say
podcast
it again
episode.
though. What if people forgot? It's been
Matt
hours since we.
Fraction's Hawkeye series, I feel, has similar tones and comedic timing and pacing of like the frames. As you said, the like cutout of the owl's hideout and showing them like the path they would have to take was very reminiscent.
Yeah.
I think if you like one, you'll definitely like the other for sure.
Yeah. And again,
Uh,
if when we get to power ranking this, Hawkeye is better. So
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And I agree with Pat. I was gonna say Hawkeye too.
Haha, You're the worst, Matt. You steal from your co-hosts.
Sorry,
Yeah.
bros.
No,
Sorry.
to be fair, I have other stuff too, but like I just like how the fact too at the back of this book it says Superior Foes of Spider-Man is something special, a new entry in a growing crop of Marvel comics like Hawkeye, FF, and Daredevil that focus on characters first and use unmatched art and humor to do so.
Oh my
What
god.
Daredevil comic at the time was being funny?
Mark Waid Daredevil was actually kind of funny. True
Was it
story.
really?
Um, there's a bit where he's like kind of not quite yet dating this lawyer he's working with in. I think he's moved to San Francisco by that point, but like they're having like a weird flirtatious thing in the office, and she's like like flips her shirt up to show her bra because she's like at this point like taunting him about like he's Daredevil but he won't admit he's Daredevil, and
Yeah.
she's just like flipped her shirt up to show her bra, and her bra just says "You are Daredevil" on it. So yeah, is actually funny and does like again would agree like has a good artist at that point because it's I think it's Chris Samney at that point and like similar-ish to this in Aha also in that it's a very like kind of clean line, cartoony sort of deal.
Sure.
That's fair.
And then I had a couple of non-comic recommendations because, of course, that's where my experience is. I would say Venture Bros has similar irreverent looks at that's Johnny Quest more than comic books, but I feel like you get the same kind of thing with the Monarch and the Beetle.
Yeah, it's a very similar
Whenever she
tone.
had like a serious like look in her costume, it's like, oh well, that's the Monarch and the henchman doing like straight man to the nonsense that's happening. So Venture Bros, and then Peacemaker, that HBO series, I thought was also pretty similar to this.
Tyler, what you got?
I am going to recommend the likes of Hawkeye, FF, and Daredevil. No, just kidding.
Very smart, very smart, very smart.
Yeah, I know what I'm doing. No, I mentioned it just a little bit ago, and at first when I read it, I wasn't totally on board, but after finishing it, it was pretty good. Ghost Rider, for 2022, the Benjamin Percy stuff that just came out not too long ago. It's the exact opposite of this, but it's pretty good, and I'm never not gonna recommend Ghost Rider stuff. Also, the comic we almost did, which is Ant-Man, or The Astonishing Ant-Man, by, what was it by? Nick Spencer.
Definitely Nick
Uh,
Spencer, because that's how
yeah,
we got to this one. I
yeah.
don't know who the artist is on that.
Who is it here? It says, I have it written down. By written down, I mean I have it pulled up on my Kindle. Spencer, Rosanas, Schoonover, and Martello. I probably said all those wrong, but that's who's all part of it. So I don't know which one is what. Oh, artist. Ramon Rosanas?
That's a new one
Maybe?
to me. I
Yeah.
believe it though.
And then the other two are just for the annuals. So
Oh, okay.
there you go. So but yeah, that was an entertaining book back in the day when I read it. What's the other one? Scalped by Jason Aaron.
Oh, you did like it.
I haven't read it yet, but everyone should because it's Jason Aaron. I'm going to read it. I caught up on the Ghost Rider stuff, then read this, and that is next on my list.
Not gonna lie, I think I would rather read a fun book at this particular moment in my life. It was nice to have a fun book with fun things going on for this like last week in particular where work has been a little rough.
Yeah,
But I would love to read Scalped for the podcast, which is part of why I gave it to you. I also think you'll like it, so there's that. But
yeah,
that's a
that's
very
next.
different book than this book. I don't know
Yeah,
if I
yeah,
would do this straight up recommendation.
yeah. I just that's next on my
Top of
pile
mind
to
though,
read.
yeah.
Yeah, and um, gonna read that, and that'll probably be the next episode, I guess.
Yeah, and Pat, it's not a
But
superhero comic.
yeah, that's the other reason why, right? And but the Ant-Man one, for sure is lighthearted and similar to this, uh, where it's kind of like what is going, like not what is going on, why am I reading it, but it's like it's low stakes, kind of silly stuff that's going on. Um, like to give some of it away, they have it's a new app like that's pretty much like Uber but for supervillains. So
Hmm.
like people can just order supervillains to show up and do stuff, but it's all like the same thing. It's all like Z-list supervillains showing up to do people's dirty work because their boss did them wrong or something along those lines. It's so goofy, and Ant-Man gets caught up in the middle of it, and that's kind of the basis of that story. So it's goofy again, low stakes. The Ghost Rider and Scalped, I'm sure, are 180 degrees opposite. I know for a fact the Ghost Rider one is, and I'm sure Scalped is probably even farther out there. So
Yeah, Scalped is a ride.
yeah, but I'm looking forward to it, which means you all should read it too.
Yeah, I will definitely. So usually for this, I grab like one of our recommendations for the actual like podcast page. I'm probably gonna grab the Ant-Man one for total similarity, but the other books are good too. So, for me, I would actually. So Tyler recommended like following Nick Spencer to a thing. One of my recommendations is following Steve Lieber to a thing. Lieber and Matt Fraction did a series at DC about Jimmy Olsen. I think it's technically called like Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen who killed Jimmy Olsen, but like you just need to know it's called Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen and know that Steve Lieber illustrated it and you'll be able to find it. It's even wackier than this. It's so good. Like if you like Hawkeye and you like this, you'll like two great tastes that taste great together and are also like later in their careers, so they're arguably better. I would definitely say Lieber's art is better in the Jimmy Olsen series than it is here, and it's perfectly good here. So a lot of great pacing. Some of my favorite depictions of just like asshole shit heel Batman in that series were like so I guess my
Was
pitch
it
for
a
this one,
remake
because
of an older one?
no, so it's just like it's a new series. It's set during like this period where Brian Michael Bendis was on Superman and like he basically pulled in a bunch of his friends to do ancillary books. So like Greg Rucka, who is the writer on Lazarus, Pat like does a Lois Lane book and Matt Fraction does a Jimmy Olsen book. And they kind of tie into the Superman story, but they're also kind of doing their own thing.
It looks like there's
Um
one from like the 1950s though.
yeah, there's a long run of Jimmy Olsen comics from forever
Yeah.
ago, and that's
Okay.
has the same title as this series. This is much more contemporary, and it's like
Sure.
a
Okay.
contained 12 issue thing.
My
Um,
favorite.
my pitch is I guess this wouldn't be my pitch, but the thing that always stands out to me about like the weird asshole version of Batman in this book is like Alfred's been paying people to laugh at Bruce Wayne's jokes for years, and Bruce Wayne finds out about it because he's like using the bathroom at Wayne Enterprises, and one of the employees is talking about it, and he goes to Alfred's like, "How long have you been paying people to laugh at my jokes?" And Alfred's like, "A very long time, sir," and he's like, "You understand that I'm docking your pay." It's just like just weird ass stuff like that. Like the very first issue, like Jimmy Olsen gets married in Gorilla City. Like it's so
Eating
wild. I love it.
gorillas.
Yeah. See, this is what I'm
Nice.
saying, Pat. Gorilla City.
Destination
This is
wedding,
where.
destination wedding.
And my other one that's a bit more serious, but still is also like has really funny moments. But like it's more of like a serious morality. Like can like villains redeem themselves or like turn the corner towards like quote unquote positive morality, but also what even is that, which is such a wild thing for a DC comic to even have, is Gail Simone, Nicola Scott, and companies like Secret Six that started like in the wake of the Infinite Crisis crossover. It is a six-person team that also does not always have six members on it. Sometimes it has seven, sometimes it has five. But
Good,
it's a very similar
good,
like yeah, the tradition, right? We got to keep it alive.
as is tradition at this point.
But like it's another like gang of criminals who are kind of just like stuck together and so go on a bunch of weird jobs and adventures, and like that those people become much closer to being like an actual family by the end of it than I feel like these guys will by the end of Superior Foes of Spider-Man, but similar vibes, a bit more serious at times, but also funny. So those are my two recommendations.
I can dig it, even though it's DC. Ugh.
Yeah, they are both DC. The like I'm kind of glad Pat recommended the Peacemaker show because the other comic I had in my head, but I was like, I think it's recency bias because I just read it like last week. Is there's a DC Black Label series? I think it's 6 issues called Peacemaker Tries Hard, and it's basically just like if the
Yeah,
Peacemaker show was a comic, It's very good. It's very funny. If you
I've
like
heard of that
Superior,
one. Yeah.
yeah, if you like Superior Foes, you'd like that too, in the same way that you would like the Peacemaker TV show. So I guess I snuck a third one in there.
Nothing wrong with that. Give the people what they want. More
More
stuff to
comic
read.
books.
More comic books.
But boys, I think that will do it for this month's discussion of the Superior Foes of Spider-Man. As always, if you want to get in touch with Pat or myself, you can email us at waitingonthetrade@gmail.com. You can also find more comics-related goodness at mattreadscomics.com. Tyler, would you like to tell the people where you are at on the internet?
If you ever are lucky enough to see me go live, I'm at twitch.tv/TrueKingT. But that doesn't happen that often, so I'm like semi-retired.
It was good while it lasted, right?
Sure. Nah, it could have been worse. It could have been worse.
Thank you, Tyler, for getting shoehorned into reading a comic that you didn't pick. I always appreciate
Yeah,
when people are willing to roll with it, but like every once in a while I've got a feeling and I'm like, no, we're gonna do this one this time. This is where we're at.
listen, I mentioned it earlier. I will mention it again. I saw where I ranked on your guys' special anniversary episode. Uh, I needed a win, so I am happy that you guys picked one that still doesn't top my best pick, which was episode 1 that I did. So we'll get there. I'm definitely gonna beat it sometime.
So I will
Maybe
say
next
that
year. We'll
I
try
will,
again in 25.
well, I mean, so we probably get back around to you before the end of the year.
Even better.
We're making good time these days.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, like, Scalped is an all-timer for me. I don't know if the first volume
Ooh.
alone will get you over Hawkeye, but I really like Scalped, so we will see. It'll also depend on how Pat feels about it, though. So
That's fair. That's
it's all
fair.
up to you, Pat. Tyler's self-esteem hinges on your decision.
Oh man.
Oh, we all know that's gonna go south real quick.